All right, for more on the courtroom showdown, we're here with federal prosecutor Doug Burns and attorney and political analyst Wendy Patrick, also joining us to break this all down. Doug, your general impression of what were both very moving testimonies?
It was a very interesting day because in a trial, and because of human nature, it's very common. It's also true in a sports event. You may think I'm crazy. Team's off to a huge start. They're up 20-0 at the halftime. The game's over. That's it. So after her testimony, it came across quite credible, and everybody was absolutely writing his obituary for this seat on the Supreme Court. But then a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, which is he came out equally strong, if not stronger, as everybody said, and they're right. In a regular trial, in a criminal trial, for example, that type of tie goes to the defendant because the government shoulders the burden of proof. Here, in an advise and consent Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, we don't really have that type of situation. We're not there to either convict him or exonerate him. We're there to give the committee evidence relevant to his character and his conduct. So very, very interesting situation. But at the same time, it behooves me to echo what an earlier guest said to you, which is that her level of corroboration was not strong.
It was non-existent.
Basically non-existent. And he had calendars and a seemingly much more specific recollection, honestly, Michelle.
We will get into the calendar, the yearbook, all of those issues. Let's bring Wendy into this conversation. Wendy, no doubt about it, Ford came across as very credible, and it was a very touching testimony. Now, Rachel Mitchell, the female sex crimes prosecutor that the Republicans brought to question Ford, was that potentially a mistake by the Republicans? Because in a way, it only built up Ford's credibility.
Well, I'm not sure they shouldn't have asked Lindsey Graham to conduct the questioning of both of those witnesses. Can you imagine, as if it wasn't exciting enough? But Michelle and Doug, you know, whoever they brought in to do that questioning would have had to have taken the same tact as the sex crimes prosecutors did. You cannot go on the attack for Dr. Ford. She came across as very sympathetic, very emotional, very credible. I mean, everybody thought this confirmation hearing was going to be about Roe versus Wade, and here now it's about Beach Week 1982. But given the turn that it took, anybody would have had to have really had kid gloves on in dealing with this testimony. But you're right, I agree with my friend Doug that the Judge Kavanaugh that came in today to testify was not the Judge Kavanaugh that gave the Fox interview Monday night. Today he was fiery, he was righteously indignant, he was very credible. Yeah. So now what does the committee do? That's why you can't call a game at halftime, and that's why judges tell jurors you cannot make up your mind until you've heard all the evidence. They are now faced with two credible witnesses, both of whom backed up their testimony with appropriate emotion, not inappropriate emotion, but they were appropriately sad at times. Judge Kavanaugh was appropriately angry at times. You got to remember that just yesterday we have new allegations by Michael Avenatti. So a lot happened since that Fox interview Monday night. They've got a tough task ahead of them. How do they vote? And are they in any different position now than they were when Dr. Ford originally made her allegations? Many think the answer is no.
Doug, as Wendy points out, both testimonies very credible, very emotional, very moving, but still missing crucial details on the part of Ford. Denied, doesn't know exactly where, doesn't know exactly when, and the people that she brought forward that she says were at the party, they brought those signed affidavits from those people saying they denied this. Why not bring Mark Judge and Kaiser, her female friend, who she said was at the party? Why not bring them in? Why not subpoena them?
I'm glad you asked that, because that tracks into, you know, this piano theme over and over today, which was piano chord. Sorry. You have to have an FBI investigation. It's amazing the way they just lop the semantics all over the place. I was at a funeral, sadly, last week, a colleague of mine, 62, and an FBI agent said, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What are you doing? Background checks. Oh, that's interesting. And he said, look, what we do is if something's positive, we put it in the file. If something's negative, maybe we follow up a little more, but we make no decision. And you heard that today. We don't determine the outcome, who's right, who's wrong. We just put it there. So they're making it sound like they want a full-on, the minute they said they want an FBI investigation, the right says you can't do a criminal investigation. Then they counter with, we're talking about a background investigation. But the fact of the matter is, what the judge was saying over and over is, wait a minute. You're the committee. You've interviewed people. You've gotten statements. So don't do this disingenuous pitch about how important. And then, of course, Senator Durbin, ridiculous. Look over right now at the White House counsel. And you saw Judge Kavanaugh did not fall for that. He didn't move, okay? And that was highly political, of course, and highly toxic. But the reality is, you can debate this till you're red in the face. One side ripping mad, you must have an FBI involvement, and the other side saying, wait a minute. We heard from her. We heard from him. It's not a perfect process. You heard that all day long, but it's the best we have, and this is what we're going to go with.
And we also certainly heard from Senator Graham. Let's play that soundbite.
I'm really upset that they knew about this in August and never told anybody. I'm really upset if Dianne Feinstein believed this was a credible allegation, that you wouldn't do Mr. Judge Kavanaugh the service of saying, I've got this, what's your side of the story? Turn it over to the committee so we could have something not this close to the midterms.
Wendy, of course, Senator Graham made a far more impassioned speech during the hearing itself. And one of the points that he brought up is that this is a political sham and that this could dissuade other people from wanting to go for public service if this is the kind of circus, as he put it, that they can expect. What do you think?
That's right, Michelle. Both he and the president have said this is a sham and a shame, and the timing matters. That has really been the crux of the political argument. Because think about it. Judge Kavanaugh has undergone 6 FBI background checks. Most people joke they wouldn't survive one. None of them really unearthed anything that's related to these charges. And the 11th hour hit job is what the Republicans are calling it, because had this information come forth earlier, not only could they have questioned Judge Kavanaugh about it, but maybe they could have done some investigation into the background circumstances. Now, I say that despite the fact that everybody that allegedly was there says they weren't. She can't say how she got there, how she got home, what house it was, even what year it was. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. But the question for those senators is, did Judge Kavanaugh do it? And had this information come forth earlier, they are basically saying they would have had the opportunity. They're not going to push it past the midterms. They'd like to have him seated October 1st when the new term starts. But had they had this information earlier, they could have vetted it better than they were able to now.
Yeah, certainly a point reiterated by the Republicans. Wendy Patrick, Doug Burns, thanks to you both. We'll be right back.
My pleasure.